today is an episode. It is with Phantom Menace actor Andrew Lawden. He is best known to be Qui-Gon's stunt double, or Liam Neeson's stunt double. He also works with Marvel and many other things. And you were involved quite extensively with The Phantom Menace.
I was.
Was that one of your first big movies you've ever worked with or worked on?
No, it was about the third. I'd say third, yeah.
Oh yeah, you did work with Prince of Thieves, didn't you?
I did.
Okay.
The very first big film I worked on was actually Ghostbusters 2, but I got cut out of it, so I don't really class it. But the first big film proper that I worked on was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And then what was in between? There was
Murphy's Law and so on, didn't you? Actually, that might have been TV. I know you worked with EastEnders and Murphy's Law.
Yeah, they were mainly for like BBC TV. I did a film which it's still been re-edited called what's it called now? It's been renamed. I had a lovely character's name in it called Poitier Phoenix. It's now called.
What was it called originally, or who was working on it? Was it like Jack the Giant Slayer or something like that?
No, it was a British independent crime thriller, which was originally called. God, because they changed the title 2 or 3 times. I think one of the names it was called was Backstabber. It's not called that anymore. It's called. I can't remember. Give me a minute. It'll come back to me in a sec.
Okay. We'll come back to that.
Star Wars was kind of like about the third big film that I worked on.
Okay. Well, just before we start Star Wars,
really sort of like epic franchise film.
Did you hear that yesterday they greenlit Ghostbusters 3 officially?
Yeah, I've heard this. That's been kicking around for a while.
It's been kicking around for a while. Like yesterday, they officially greenlit it. They officially approved it.
Really? Have they managed to sort out all the palaver with
Bill Murray?
Bill Murray.
He won't be in it. Officially, he will not be in it.
Oh, really? That's going to piss a lot of people off then.
But I think he thinks he's above that, though. Like, what's Bill Murray doing otherwise? He's not doing anything important. But,
Bill Murray kind of has retired, hasn't he? I think he's
semi-retired.
To really want to do anything anymore. And I think it's a case of like people keep trying to present things to him to kind of bring him like out of retirement, because I think he said something a couple of years ago that he didn't really want to do much else in the near future, which is a shame, because he's very good, and I don't know. I mean.
I know the last thing I remember him being in myself that I saw. I know he was in Zombieland. It was a hilarious cameo. I think he was in the Ghostbusters video game. Actually, I think he was in Moonrise Kingdom. Come to think of it, I think he was. I think he was FDR. No, not FDR.
Yeah, I know the one that you mean. I think.
Yeah, Moonrise Kingdom. Here's Walt Bishop.
That's it. I don't know. I mean, everybody's a bit baffled as to what.
But if Ghostbusters 3 gets made,
if they are going to bring him, they are going to bring him out of retirement.
But if it does get made, it'll at least be interesting to see the background, because there's been a lot of story about how this movie was they've been working on it for years, and it'll have an interesting story behind it, to say the least.
So who exactly have they announced is going to be in it?
The official ones, they announced they're going to be in it.
Yeah.
Let me bring up the article itself. Dan Aykroyd, of course, is going to be in it because he wrote it. Remus is going to be in it. So he's kind of big now.
Harold Ramis. Yeah, he's big in directing, isn't he? Really?
Yeah, and I don't know if you could. Well, I know they announced him in it. I know they said there's a possibility that I can't remember his name right now.
Oh,
The guy who was in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and so on, that he wants to be
Rick
back in it.
Moranis. Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis wants to be back. They just have to figure out a way to work around his schedule.
Right.
And of course, Sigourney Weaver is in the air, but they don't really need her anyway.
I have to say, I find it hard to believe that they want to have her in it if they don't have Bill Murray in it. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all. Now they could have their kid. Of course, their kid should be in it.
Yeah.
And I know they've said that Anna Faris and Bill Hader are going to be in it as well.
Is that the woman who was the telephone operator?
Anna Faris, and so I know they're trying to bring him in as a new generation of Ghostbusters.
Oh, right, I see. So that's how it's going to work. Ah.
Yeah. We'll see how it might be a terrible movie, but at least it'll be an interesting story between how they made it. Movies that take forever to make always turn out to be rather interesting when they make them, because it took so long.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't turn out to be something like when they made The Godfather 3,
Oh, yeah.
And they kind of waited too long on that one. It's like, oh, please.
But of course, they've also done extended sequels like, say, Rise of the Planet of the Apes turned out pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know.
So they can make it good. Well, I guess we'll find out when it gets released in 2014.
Yeah. It's just such a shame
that Bill Murray's
not going to be in it, really, because even if he was just in it for a bit,
Who knows? Maybe they'll show him an early cut and he'll demand to be in it or something.
Oh, that could be good.
Okay, but now onward to Star Wars. Okay, so how were you approached to play roles in that film? Like, how did you find out? Like, I'm assuming it's the type of movie that everyone wanted to be in, and so everyone, and their dog wanted to send applications and resumes and so on. It's like, how were you chosen to be in that film, and what was the selection process like?
I think it was a mixture of being a bit smart and cheeky, and somebody working on it who I'd worked with, but didn't really know very well, but did remember that we'd worked together on Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. When I heard the original plot storyline, I kind of worked out that if they were going to have Darth Vader as a young guy, that would be the thing to pitch for. Because being 6'4", you kind of think, well, he's got to be that big. Because Dave Prowse was about 6'5", who played him, and I thought that would be the best way forward. So I dropped them a line. I managed to track down the production office at Lucasfilm, and the woman who was dealing with the casting, a woman called Robin Gerlin, and I basically wrote a letter saying, please would you consider me as like the young Darth Vader? Are you looking for the young Darth, and I had fight skills, and I told them about Robin Hood, and I told them about other stuff. Because the thing is that I like to sort of train predominantly in theatre. I'd done like classical sort of theatre training course, and I'd done things like sort of Shakespeare and modern American plays, and I'd come from that background. But I always tend to sort of end up playing roles where I'm like running around with a gun or a sword or fighting somebody, and I thought, well, I'll put that in because that would be relevant. And I put the Shakespeare stuff in because I'd done things like Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth and a wonderful Jacobean play called "'Tis Pity She's a Whore," in which there's a lot of good sword fighting in it. So I thought they're going to need all that stuff. And I got a letter coming back saying that yeah, thank you for your application, blah blah blah. Yes, we have got young Darth Vader, but unfortunately he's going to be a young boy. Okay, but we would be interested in seeing you. Could you come along to That was it. It was being shot at the Leeson Studios in Britain, where they also shot Harry Potter. And they'd shot the Bonds up there. They'd shot GoldenEye there. They'd shot The World Is Not Enough and all that stuff. And so I remember going up to the studio to meet Robin Kurland and a few other people, thinking I was going to meet the main man himself, Mr. Lucas, other luminaries connected with it. And, of course, they weren't there. So you know, we chatted and talked, that was the end of that. And I went away, and I thought, okay, wasn't quite sure what to make of it. Really, it seemed really nice, but there was no clue what they were looking for, what they wanted. You know, they asked a lot about what I'd done, and they were filming it. And I think basically what they wanted for the audition is they didn't want you to come in and do anything or do a piece or read from the script. They wanted to see you. They wanted to see what you were like as a person on camera, engaging with them, and what you as a natural person could possibly bring to the film. That was my impression. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So I went away and heard nothing for a week or two, and you know, kind of back then I used to look at things in a different way to what I do now. I used to think that you know, to wait too long to hear about something was not good. But as I discovered, because film can take a funny journey, that's not always the case. So basically, what happened was I then got a phone call by my agent saying, "Oh, the Star Wars people have called, and they really liked you, and they said, would you be interested in playing an alien?" And I thought, possibly. What does it entail? And she said to me, she said, "I'm not sure. I'll email them or call them back." I think, yeah, people used to call people more then than they did email. Because this was back in 1997. Yeah, 1997 this was. And again, of course, my mind started working overtime, because I couldn't work out why from the first meeting that I'd had, because there comes another one, how they worked out that he'd be playing an alien. But you never know what's going through people's head. So Jeremiah, the call came back, and they said, "Oh, they basically want you to play an alien creature, and so they can't sort of talk a lot about it, but it would be you know, in quite a few scenes, and but you would have to be prepared to be in prosthetics with kind of knobbles or tentacles or whatever it was, for up to 3 to 4 hours a day." And at the time, I'd only done a couple of like minor prosthetic jobs, and I thought, being a bit vain and naive as you can tend to be, because I'd only been out of drama school a few years, and I'd done a lot of good things, but nothing where I'd kind of been covered up and not seen. And I thought, and so I said, you know, that I wasn't really that keen. I didn't actually say, I remember now, I didn't actually say no, but I remember saying, you know how to put this better than I am. I said, I'm not keen, because I didn't want to think that I was not interested in working in the project. And of course, I didn't want them to think that, like, no, I wasn't interested, and they wouldn't be bothered offering anything else. So she went back to them, and she said that she'd spoke to the casting director's assistant, and she said she said as well as these aliens, they've also got this bunch of soldiers that they want to cast. that they've got an idea of working with alongside the Jedi Knights and one of the main characters in the film, which they didn't disclose, but I later found out was to be Queen Almedea, played by Natalie Portman. And they said, would you be interested in like that? And I thought, yeah, that could be a lot more fun. Thinking slightly foolishly, which I'll explain in a minute, that it would be a part where you would be seen more, because of course we all like to be seen doing what we do, you know. And she said, "Oh, they want you to come for a fight audition." So I got in the car again, went back up to Leavesden, drove around the big lot, and you know, one of the amusing thing about when you go up to Leavesden is that. Do you remember in the Bond film GoldenEye, there's that lovely chase sequence with Bond in the Russian tanks driving around Red Square?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, bizarrely, they dumped all the Russian tanks on the road that takes you right into the main studio. They're all just sort of left there covered in tarpaulins. And you think, that's a bit odd. Because if you take a peek under them, as we did when we were working up there, you kind of realise what they are. And you think, why don't they put these on the set or in the museum? But hey. So I went back up there and I went to the room to go to the fight audition. And in walks Nick Gillard and Alex Petridis. And Nick Gillard looks at me and he goes, I know you. I looked at him and I thought, yeah, I know you from somewhere as well. It's like, what have you done? What have you worked on? And we went, blah, 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 blah. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And it turned out, even though I didn't know him that well, Nick Gillard had been a stunt double for people like Kevin Costner and what's his face? Not Christian Bale, Christian Slater. Anybody who was kind of in the kind of sort of small to mid range, because he's only a short guy, Nick. He's only about 5'8", 5'9". And he doubled for them, doing all the like jumps out the trees and, you know, falls off the battlements and things. And you know, like this, for some bizarre reason, he remembered me. He obviously just got I think he's got a good memory for faces. And so he was with he had his assistant, this lovely guy called Alex Petridis, who I've heard recently through a friend of mine. He's currently working on, do you get the TV series Merlin over there?
Yes, we do. We love Merlin.
Yeah, he's working on Merlin. He's like one of the main stunt guys and fight coordinators on Merlin. So they're all in very good hands. And he taught me a short routine that was what became part of the Jedi fight style. And I picked it up and we did it. We had a knockabout with him and a knockabout with Alex, and he like filmed it. And once again, we like got in the studio and got in the car and drove down the wrong drive, drove down the road and went away. Heard nothing for a week or so. Again, on for nearly 2 weeks. You think, okay, well, I think we're probably done and dusted on this one. So I then got a phone call from my agent, literally sort of out of the blue. I remember what I was doing when it happened. I was out running in the park, and I got a phone call, and she said they really like what you did, and they want to offer you one of the soldiers. And I thought, yeah, I'll do that. And 2 days later, I was in wardrobe, measured up. And I think literally 2 days after that, I was on set and couldn't believe it. Absolutely couldn't believe it. Me and a whole bunch of other guys were like walking around in these purple, blue suits, being the Queen's Guard, as we found out, Federation soldiers, Federation Guards or something. There were different names for them. Led by this lovely guy called Captain Panaka, played by this fabulous actor called Hugh Corshi, who I knew because he used to be at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and I see him do some stuff And so I thought it was pretty cool to be like working with him. And as you can imagine, like every day just going to work was just like a dream come true. You'd walk in these hangars and you'd see all these spaceships and bits of different sets, and you just didn't know where you put yourself, really.
So you say you got to work with, some amazing people. One of the guys you got to be stunt double for, since Phantom Menace has taken the world by storm, so to speak, that being, of course, Liam Neeson, who, he's been in Batman, he's been in Chronicles of Narnia, he has this Taken series, he's been in Clash of the Titans. Since Phantom Menace, he's basically become one of the biggest commodities in Hollywood, and people love him because he's Liam Neeson. So it was like working alongside Liam Neeson as his double.
Well, that was like really weird because I only really sort of saw him about twice. Because I got pulled aside one day and thought I'd done something wrong, and basically asked if I would be interested in being the stand-in double, but I didn't know for whom. And I said, well, what do I have to do? They said, well, basically, you just have to copy everything that they do. And I then discovered that it was going to be for him. But I only really sort of saw him twice because the way that the film was being shot, it was being shot in 3 units. So there'd be like first unit, second unit, third unit. And Liam and Ewan and all the other kind of major people would like rock up and do their scenes, and they'd do all the main close-ups. And we would watch them because there was a stand-in for Obi-Wan Kenobi and pretty much everybody, really. In fact, the funniest story was that initially, before they developed the idea of the part into the script, was that some young unknown girl called Keira Knightley was Natalie Portman's stand-in double.
And then she was in Pirates of the Caribbean and suddenly became...
Yeah, which is kind of funny, sort of like looking back, she was this shy little sort of 17, 18-year-old girl, who didn't really sort of chat to anybody, and she would do Natalie's scenes. And then there was that weird thing in the thing where she plays, she pretends to be one of the as a hand. She said she becomes one of the handmaidens, and then she acts the decoy. But she's never really properly credited within the film, if you put it. So that's
yeah. One of the things I like to do is watch the film and figure out when it's Natalie Portman and when it's Keira Knightley, and it's kind of cool. Try to figure out which scene's which.
I need to do that because we kind of see it from different perspectives. But I never saw him probably about twice, once of which came out of this trailer. There was a very funny moment where he came out in all his gear, and there was me standing there, and standing next to him was a guy called Rob Inch, who I think is now the fight director on the Tom Cruise thing that's filmed over here in Britain, All You Need Is Kill. I think he's working on that. He was the official stunt double. So there were 3 people to each role. I did some of the work, but the really sort of complicated, dangerous stuff he did. So, and Liam came out of his trailer and he says, "We're trying to use me," which is funny, and sort of went off to do some work, and that was about one of a couple of the cases I actually saw him. Because we were all on different sets, and so we would basically follow him around. So whatever he'd done in a scene, we'd watch what he'd done on the monitor and then basically copy it, and the camera crew would shoot everything in mid-shot to long shot. So that's how it was done.
Okay, so you got to be his stunt double. I'm assuming, were you his stunt double when it came to the fights and so on, right? Like the lightsaber fight on Tatooine and on Naboo?
The 2-on-1 fight?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot of the pickups on that.
What about the one on Tatooine with against Darth Maul?
Darth Maul, yeah, I did a couple of the pickups on that. The jump onto the spaceship was funny because initially it was a jump on a box that was about 3 foot tall, which I thought was hilarious. It's amazing what they can do with CGI and nappy and things against the green screen. It was literally a tea chest. I remember jumping on a chi chest, and eventually it was a spaceship. That was funny.
So was there anything that you filmed for any of those fights that got cut that you wish had been able to stay into the movie? Like any cool fight stuff, any cool type of stunt that you wish they had just kept in there rather than cutting out?
There's a load of stuff that's never really kind of made any of the current cut.
Is there anything like specific you want to talk about?
It's with the soldiers fighting, you know, them and their palace, and they're fighting the droids and you know, pretty much anybody who's not on the side of Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, or Queen Amadea.
Yeah.
There were quite a few bits that we filmed that didn't end up. There were some nice shots around by the planes. There was some nice shots around by like the hovercraft with the droids. And I've never seen them. I remember doing them. They've never seen the light of day for whatever reason. The funniest thing I find is that most of what I was originally hired to do was upstaged by the staff doubling for Liam. I.e., most of what I did doubling for Liam ended up in the final cut. And I suppose the proudest bit is that, you know, the bit when Liam gets hit by Darth Maul and is sort of dying and then eventually dies.
Yeah.
Right? Well, when he gets hit by the lightsaber and falls on the floor and Obi-Wan has to go and finish the fight off and kill him, that's me. Me lying in the spasticated position for God knows how many hours it was when we were shooting that.
So they just said, let's lay there and wake up when we
yeah,
tell you
that
to?
took about 2 hours, and I remember people, I couldn't move because they were shooting it from different angles. And
So the last stuff we were talking about was how you were doubling for Liam and how you had to lay on the ground. How you had to lay on the ground a long time when he died.
Yeah, that particular bit took about 2 to 3 hours to shoot because of the different places they were shooting it. Unfortunately, Ewan was around that day to do his lines, and the POV of the camera was right by my head, so obviously they get like his reaction shots. And that became very bizarre because all of a sudden it's like I'm playing Qui-Gon Jinn for a minute. So I went over the lines and gave him like the lines and stuff so that he's got something to play off. But yeah, you couldn't move, and you know, until they told you. And I remember being fed with water with straws, and it being rather hot, amongst other things. But the great thing about all this is that what's his name, George Lucas himself, was doing all the shoots, all the pickups and the reshoots, which, as you can imagine, is like worth its weight in gold. You know, so. Yeah, it was awkward, but it was like a lot of fun. There was another scene like that was a lot of fun where there's a bit where they Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan come out of the water in that sort of underwater spaceship, and they have to like run into the palace and recce the palace. And I remember us going down to this location where we had all the Jedi gear on, but we had wetsuits on underneath, and we had to keep like jumping in and out of this water for a mid and a long shot, and running along this little towpath with a camera crew about 15, 20 meters away, doing that as a pickup and a follow-on. Very, very heavy when wet. Yeah, well, if you can imagine, I've got like this massive long-haired wig, 2 or 3 like cloaks, I think the Jedi thing was, a very nice pair of like leather boots, and then underneath all this, I've got like a wetsuit. Amazing what they get you to do.
So was that the most complicated one you had to do?
One of them. There was, however, some other stuff where we were jumping off these platforms, which I think ended up as connecting shots in the fights. I remember jumping off and doing a somersault onto a crash mat a few times. That was quite fun because that was about 10, 20 foot in the air. which I thought they would have got the real, you know, stunt people to do. But they asked us if I could do it. And fortunately, a long time ago, I'd done gymnastics at school, so I can do like a few flips and cartwheels.
And someone told them that?
I think it was on the CV when I submitted it, and because they were asking me about stuff that I'd done. And the thing is, I've done a couple of things similar to it, because you find that you incorporate bits in fights anyway. I remember in Robin Hood there was a scene that we did where there's a big explosion when Robin Hood fires the famous flame arrow to the gallows at the end.
Yeah.
And there was a shot that we did whereby when the explosion went off, I got blasted onto the floor, but the idea was that people were attacking, and we had this very nice sort of move where as soon as I hit the floor from the blast, I went into a shoulder roll and came up and sort of blocked somebody who was trying to attack me with a single broadsword. So that was all quite fun. And you need that kind of sort of gymnastic thing and all unique bits of that to do it. So, of course, when we got to like these platform things, and he said, like, oh, you're happy about doing this. I think the first one was about 10 foot up, and then we went to about 15, 20 foot. Because, you know, the crash mat will take your weight. And it's a bit like, you know, when you go on a diving board swimming, you just do it. It's that thing you taught, the technique. You just do it. The only tricky bit I seem to recall was we had like one of the practice lightsabers with us. And the idea was of the shot was that we sort of flipped over and jumped onto the crash mat whilst holding the lightsaber. And funnily enough, that was the hardest bit to do, holding something and flipping rather than just flipping. Just a bit of a coordination thing you had to be a bit careful on.
So was there any stunt they asked you to do that when they first told you about it? You're just like, I can't do that. No, I can't do that.
I don't remember anything. I think they were very careful as to ascertaining what they would allow you to do. I think for insurance purposes. Really high jumps and very complicated fight stuff were done by the stuntman. I remember something one day being done by Rob Inch, who was the stunt double for Liam. He did this really amazing thing. He had one of the practice lightsabers, and I think it was a fill-in shot for, you know, the little contretemps that he has with Darth Maul in the desert.
Yeah.
It was a really lovely move where I think Darth had gone to cut him, and he blocked it, and he suddenly flipped the sword around to attack his other side. And what he did was that he basically sort of jumped in the air and span round in the air and blocked a shot, which I thought was pretty cool and looked quite simple, but I think the way that they were staging it was a tricky shot and part of a complicated fight thing, which they got him to do rather than me. I mean, I did some fight stuff, but I tended to do a lot of the pickup moves or the follow-on moves. They were predominantly like blocks and sort of minor cuts. I never really got to do a lot of the fancy stuff. Although there was one they did allow me to do. There's a move in the 2-on-1 fight where Darth has the double-bladed lightsaber. That we did again, I think, because it's been shot in long shot or mid shot, where Qui-Gon attacks him with a couple of successive blows, and Darth basically blocks him, alternating with the two blades on the double-ended lightsaber. I remember doing that. That was quite fun. Because all the practice lightsabers were like brought out in this trolley, and they were so strict with them. They came out and there were three sizes. They were either blue, orange, or green. They were three different lengths, and they had like a weapons master who would check them in and check them out every single session. And they had a couple of like the double-bladed ones as well, but you couldn't like walk off the set with them. You couldn't, you know, they were very protective of them. And I remember doing it this day. He turns up and he had this wonderful old, like, it was like a kind of a wagon made of wood, and the two sides folded down like something out of the old Wild West, with these beautifully crafted handled lightsabers and these, reinforced different coloured steel rods, which still got bent from all the bashing around. And then the weapons master in between, like, film takes and stuff, depending on what we were using, like, if there was any straightening that needed because we'd had a good knockabout with them, he'd be straightening them up, ready for the next shot. It's like the stuff that went on, it was just, and I remember thinking back to the story of the famous story of, like, the originals, when they were, like, they used to use broom handles painted with luminous paint, and you think, yeah, well, they've come on a bit since then, but probably not too much. But then, of course, you realise that they were using more of the CGI, and it was all coloured for that reason. And legs, because of, like, if you've got a short bladed weapon, you can get an easier close-up on camera. So I just learned loads about all that stuff and how the fights were going to be put together and how the moves that you did would work, and it was just invaluable, really. And all the time I've got, you've got, like, George Lucas and Rick McCallum sort of running around and in behind the camera and checking this and checking, dream come true, really. Although George is a bit OTT sometimes on the detail. He does give you, like, loads of stuff to kind of take on board.
Okay, so just talking about George, so what's he like on set? Like, what's it like to be working under him with him telling you the orders?
He's lovely, because he's very much like, he dresses sort of like one of the crew, so he comes on board, but he's just, he just tells you what he wants you to do. I mean, like I said, he uses, sometimes uses you a great deal of detail to do something what seems very simplistic, and he's very much into, like, the team playing thing. I remember many a time that, like, we'd, like, break for lunch, and George would come and sit at the table with a monitor, and we'd look at stuff we'd done while we'd eat food, but everybody would sit around. There wouldn't be, like, the film crew on one table and the actors on another table. There would, you could see stuff and very easily talk about what had done and everything. And that was really, really nice. And I thought at the time, I just thought, this is actually, like, quite cool. It's like, and I remember thinking, I thought, I wonder if, like, all directors, like, do this. Because I'd only worked with a couple of, like, big ones, and it was kind of, it just seemed a very interesting approach for someone like him, who's, like, incredibly well known and respected. But I think that's probably why he is, because he has that kind of I'm one of the boys approach, or it's a group thing. It's it's very much his baby, and he's got like an amazing mind, Jeremiah, because he's got this whole world in his head. He's got it all worked out. There's nothing he can't tell you about, like why you're giving a communicator here or why he wants this kind of reaction to that, because he's just got it all mind mapped in his head,
So when you were told you were going to be working on Star Wars, like, have you been a Star Wars fan your whole life? Like, what was your reaction when you found out that you would, in fact, be working on Star Wars?
I was initially quite gobsmacked because you know how it is. You go up for things, and sometimes things that you go up for are, like, really, really big, and then the moment they actually turn around and offer you the job, you think, oh, right, I'm going to be working on this. I don't think it kind of hits you. Obviously, you get, like, very excited when you, like, rock up there, but as you probably know, there's a lot of, like, waiting around and hanging around on film, and this was no exception. But when I remember when we turned up there and had met the other soldiers, and there was this kind of almost childlike excitement that it's like, oh, we're going to get to work on this, and everybody wanted to run around the hangars and look at the sets and look at the planes and look at the droids and look at anything, really. But the curious thing was that everybody thought, wrongly, we were all going to be, like, fighting with the lightsabers. And if you look in the first film, not many people do. Because the soldiers have all got, like, blaster guns and things. And so the only real people who fight with lightsabers are, like, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Darth Maul, and I think Yoda has a little scene where he, I think, flips one around or something, but he doesn't actually fight anyone. And so I was actually very privileged, really, because if I hadn't said yes to that job, I wouldn't have been taught that, because as you may know, or maybe you don't know, the lightsaber fight style is a very specific style that's a mixture of other fight forms. Did you know that or not?
I did not know. I just know Nick Gillard, who does it, is amazing. And I know Ray Park helped a lot, too. Did you get to work with Ray Park with your fighting?
I did. Ray was really good because there was Alex Petridis used to stand in sometimes for Ray, dressed in all the gear. But if Ray was free and around, Ray would do a lot of his own pickups, which was great because he's trained in I think it's Shattokhan karate or something. He's like a black belt instructor level.
Okay. Oh, look, there's a siren.
Oh,
okay.
Good call.
Okay, so of course, folks, this has been Andrew Lawden, stuntman extraordinaire, Marvel employee. So if people want to get in contact with you,
I'm not a stuntman. I'm an actor who does stunts because apparently I've been told off for that for billing. It is
okay, so an actor who's able to do stunts.
Oh God! Don't get me started on that. It's, bloody IMDb and their listings, they keep getting it wrong for some reason.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a skill set that I have.
So if people want to get in contact with you, want to send you a thank you note, want to show their appreciation or just follow you, how can people follow your work and or get in contact with you?
I have a website, www.andrewlawden.co.uk, and there's email contact addresses on there. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm a member of a Star Wars thing called Autobots or something. But the website is probably the best thing, Jeremiah, because one of the things that I found over the years is that people try to track you down from all over the world. And I've now been asked and invited along to a lot of conventions to attend and give talks and even do like Jedi fight demos, which is
nice.
Kind of fun. So I have a series of official exclusive photos that fans like signed and they can buy and purchase and stuff from the website as well, because that's part and parcel of the thing as well. In fact, I'm waiting to hear if I'm going to be attending something over in America, because that's one of the places I've not actually been to yet, which would be nice.
Well, that's cool.
But, it takes a while sometimes for these things to be set up. But yeah, it'd be great to come over and in whatever city or place or convention, or even if it was a series of them, come meet a lot of the fans and stuff. And one of the things I've been advised to do, because I hear there's lots of spoof things out in the world, is that all the pictures and stuff that you get from my website are exclusive. Lucasfilms have given me, the sign-off to make them as they are and what they are and authenticate them. And including the actual sort of publicity shots, there's a couple of special ones where we've got, I'm wearing we were given special cast and crew jackets. And there's one shot that kind of helps. I know there's a big thing with merchandise that exists that I've learned over the years. When we were shooting the film, they hadn't actually decided that they were going to call it The Phantom Menace. So the cast and crew jackets that we were given had only got Star Wars Episode 1 embroidered on the jackets. There aren't many of those in existence. There were only about 60 ever made. And most of them will have been given to the cast and the crew and will have their name in the inside label and stuff. So as you can imagine, from a merchandise point of view, if they ever pop up anywhere or are being sold, they're worth a fortune. Just as I'm sure you may have heard, a lot of in the earlier films, there were various titles for the films that they didn't use. I mean, I've met actors who were in things like The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, who've got T-shirts and sweatshirts with things like the Empire's Revenge, Revenge of the Jedi, because these were names they were originally going to call the films.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, they're quite sought after. And as far as I know to this date, I'm the only, despite the many of us that are in connection with all the films, I am the only Star Wars actor currently with permission from Lucasfilms to sort of have the official publicity shots with the cast and crew jacket. Like, there's nobody else wearing them in their pictures. So, because I was always told by other people who've done a lot of the conventions that said, like, people like to have something that's fairly unique and exclusive. So I decided to go down that road so that if anybody actually sort of buys anything from you, it's all legitimate, it's all exclusive. You can't, like, go to Comic-Con Orlando and go and buy them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and understand.
A lot of people I've heard in the business, Jeremiah, that get ripped off, and I don't think that's right because, it's not fair to the fans. I mean, I go on and do like other things and will work on other things and will continue to do so. I don't want something like that following me around. And I think it's very important that people who come and support and respect your work, especially if they're paying money to have things from you, that it's of a decent standard. Because when we were making the film, George and Rick wanted us to do that for their film. They expected it to be of a good standard. So I think it's a nice follow through to continue that, really. And that's something I try and stand by. And do you know what I mean? It's that. I mean, I've heard all kinds of like horror stories of fake pictures and fake signatures, and and that's.
Well, right after Ralph McQuarrie died, all of a sudden tons of his signatures suddenly appeared, and most of them weren't real.
Yeah,
they disappeared as soon as he died.
Well, what I try to do is that anybody who buys any pictures or photographs, right? I always try to make sure that the image and the picture is authenticated. So I try and personalize it to them to cut down that risk. So if, like, say, Joe McCann from North Carolina sends me a thing and says, "Can I buy a picture off you, such and such?" It'll be written like, to Joe, thank you for being such a great fan of the film, or something like that. Love and best wishes, Andrew Lawden. And it will be a proper signature. It's not like some people that like squiggle on the page. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And I've heard of things that, like, certain people who are like big or who were big in the film, charging extraordinary amounts for stuff, which again I think is a bit wrong and naughty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Not naming any names, but I have heard certain people charging like £50 a pop for an autograph.
And sometimes it's even more.
Yeah, but it's again, it kind of like you sort of like weigh it up. If I was someone like Samuel Jackson or like Christopher Lee, I probably wouldn't need to charge that amount of money. Do you know what I mean?
So they have nothing to prove,
and I'm there from another thing, and these things are generally kind of like secondary or sidelines, or do you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing. So that's very important, and the fan base is kind of like and respect that. So anybody who wants to sort of get anything, and if you want exclusive stuff, always come to me via the website. And I can always direct you to like other people and other official sort of things, so you don't get sucked into, the wrong places, as it were.
Okay, so this has been
people that want us to come and visit things, attend things, do things. I mean, I don't mind. I mean, I sort of like travel all over the place. I've been halfway around sort of Europe most of this year. I've been to Germany twice for Star Wars conventions, 2 or 3 things around the UK. There's talk of something in Japan coming up in November. So yeah, I don't mind. I know some people don't like the traveling, but I'm the opposite. If you want me to come along and sort of do something or do stuff. In Germany, we had something very nice they set up. they had this little Jedi fight academy for the kids. Basically, we did like a small routine with them, and they learnt the routine and fought in pairs. And I presented them all with like signed certificates from Qui-Gon Jedi Academy to the kids, and they loved it. That's a lot of fun. It's great to come along and do something like that. And
It is.
we were talking about the fight styles with Nick Gillard and stuff. When Nick was putting together the fight styles, what I was going on to say before it got cut off is that the style is a mixture of things like broadsword, samurai, kendo, and weird things like tree chopping moves and a couple of tennis moves, and it's all sort of mixed because it's that semi-contact style. And if you watch it and break it down, you'll see those sort of different style moves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess also finishing the question we were asking before, you got to work with Ray Park. Did you get to learn specific things from Ray Park himself? Because I know he did a lot of the choreography for Phantom Menace. Because when Ray Park's there, he's really good at what he does. So he is very good at creating his own choreography and fight styles. Did you get to learn anything specifically from him? And if so, what did you learn?
I learned some good block moves because the double-bladed lightsaber is primarily based on a quarter-staff fighting technique. So it was quite good to learn, I suppose, speed and precision. Ray's very good at like speed and precision on things. And because he has this lovely martial arts background, which Nick very cleverly utilized with him, because Nick would they planned the story of the fight, and of course what would happen was that they would have ideas for things at various points within the story, and he would put those things in or try bits and pieces. And then, of course, when I came to do like the pickups, they would go over and tell me what I needed to do to get the move. And Ray's very precise and very sort of fast, so it's got this very sort of clean, smooth about it.
So was it weird filming a...
Although people have like mixed feelings about the film, the actual 2-on-1 fight sequence is probably regarded as one of the best throughout all of the 6 films.
Yes, it is. So did you
it is one of those,
Did you find it weird that they film fights, not in order? Like when you watch the fight on screen, it's in a different order than what they actually filmed it in?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, and the weird thing was fighting against like these weird backdrops that were like green and blue, and there were like parts of sets, and you'd be jumping off like boxes that would eventually become platforms and things. Like I said yesterday, the bit with we did the pickup shot of Qui-Gon jumping on the ship in the desert. Originally that was me jumping on top of the tea chest about 3 foot high. It becomes this thing. So it's all sort of weird and wonderful at the same time. But you have to just trust it, and you kind of always know that you're in a good set of hands. Thankfully, because I knew that Nick was a very good stuntman, and has done loads of stuff, but I knew when he was on Bobby, he was a very good stuntman. So I knew that when we were like on there, I knew that he wasn't going to be, there weren't going to be people on the fight sequences, particularly like, Ray, who weren't of a very good standard, and could just pitch in with all these things. And George and Rick loved it, and they very much trusted the interpretation, because George and Rick had, particularly George had this idea of how the fight should go, and he could just discuss this with Nick, and Nick would go, right, okay, so if we had this move, this move, this move, this move, and this move, that will tell this part of the story in the way that you want. And Ray would pick up on that and put in bits and pieces, and they just tweak it until they got it how they wanted to do it, and then shoot it. Or sometimes, Jeremiah, what they would do is they would shoot 2 or 3 different versions. So George would always have a lot of stuff to cut in the editing room. In fact, we spent a lot of time doing this because, on the initial shoot, I think I was on it for about a month, 6 weeks, on a 3.5 month shoot. but I was actually on the film in total, on and off, about 18 months, because we kept coming back and reshooting bits or doing pickups or putting in little bits, and you know what I mean? It was that kind of setup, you know. And sometimes it would be very like minor things, like I particularly remember one scene that we did where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan rescue Captain Panaka and a bunch of soldiers from they've been captured by the Sith forces, and they're fighting these droids, which in itself was very funny, because when we did that, there was a lot of men in like white suits, and they didn't actually tell us they were droids. And I remember going back to do like a pickup of a move that Qui-Gon does, which is kind of like a cross with the lightsaber before he cuts this robot's head off. And I don't know why we did that, but for some reason George didn't have something of that move from a specific angle for whatever he wanted. So everybody rocks up and does what they need to do. And that scene particularly was like very funny, because I remember when we originally shot it, 1 minute I was on the floor playing one of the soldiers, and then the next thing I'm doing the pickup as like Qui-Gon running around in the same scene. So there were funny days like that where it was like, right, who am I this morning and who am I this afternoon, or who am I today? Once that I'd taken on board that second job. So as you can imagine, it's. I think this has become, as I've discovered again, because I find doing the convention things a big learning curve. This has become one of the fascinating things that I get asked to the conventions for, because in a way I have quite a unique role in the films that only a certain sort of bunch of actors do. You know, there's various people I've met on the conventions who played like 2 or 3 roles or have done something like this. They're not just playing like one thing or doing one thing in it. And it does give you an interesting perspective from the film from different angles in the story. And as you can imagine, it's like, you know, the experience itself is like priceless, and what you learn is priceless. I mean, working alongside people like, you know, Ewan and Liam and George and Rick and Ray and all those people was just great, you know. And it's also very funny because it's, you know, we're talking about something that happened, what now, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
And to go back and revisit that on a regular basis is kind of nice and yet kind of strange, because as you can imagine, it's like, you know, I'm involved in doing other things and constantly, you know, I'm doing so. So it is kind of odd to like go back to something that you've done, because there's a part of me that sort of feels it's like, oh, that was a really good, like wonderful job as part of a career. Do you know what I mean? It's got a sense of that about it.
Okay, so I guess I have one last question for you.
Go on.
So, you know, you've worked with Phantom Menace. Have you ever wanted to, you know, did you ever want to go back and work with the other 2 Star Wars prequels, or if you were given the option, would you ever go back to work with Lucasfilm and George Lucas again on another Star Wars movie, or are you done and you're happy that it's done?
I actually shot myself in the arse really by turning down the original offer. Do you remember I told you I originally offered to play one of the aliens, and I said no?
Yeah.
Well,
which alien was it?
It was one of the aliens who sit round in the, you know, Bennett with Samuel Jackson and Mace Windu.
Yeah.
It was one of those. And of course, you know, sometimes you don't know where things were going to go, and sometimes, you know, there are things done out of your hands. One of the things that I didn't know was going to happen was that the production base was going to move. You see, originally, George Lucas had booked Leavesden Studios for about 6 years to make all 3 films. And then there was some deal struck between him and Warner Bros.
Okay, so there was a deal.
They won't have to like fly people to Tunisia, the Tatooine set. You know, they could literally drive everybody like 30, 40 minutes up the road and be in desert and have these sets. And so they relocated everything over there. And what happened was that had I actually said yes to being one of the aliens, I would have been taken with them and been in the other two films.
Because one of these aliens, I assume you mean like part of the Jedi Council and so on, which means you would have been in a lot more of the films. But it looks like you got a lot to do in Phantom Menace, though. You weren't just a person there for a day or two. It looks like you had a lot to do, so you even though you weren't.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I mean, I was kept very busy, especially when I was asked to do the second job as the stand-in to the double to Qui-Gon. You know, like I said, I was on and off it for 18 months in the end, so it became quite a long job. But there is an option now that possibly of bizarrely going back to it because they're now doing the animated series, The Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. And I've recently been in touch with the people that do a lot of the voicing and acting on that, about doing something on that. So if that happens, that'll be very nice.
And when that happens, we'll get in contact with you again, and we'll talk to you about it. If when that happens, we'll contact you again and try to get a scoop about that, what your experience on Clone Wars was like.
Oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah, of course you can. It's not a problem. You know, by all means. You know, but like I said, that's. There's just been talks going on about that. They're trying to set up some meeting with the powers that be so that can be done, and I've got to do a voice tape for. But again, it's that old thing of like, because I've worked on one of the other films, then there's a very good chance I could be in it somewhere somehow. I mean, for example, I don't know if you're aware of this, like Darth Maul makes a reappearance in the series.
Yeah, played by Sam Witwer.
So I don't know how that will work. I have a feeling if it does work, I will be some character that has nothing really to do with what I've done. Or I could be completely wrong. I might be a Federation soldier again. I could be something completely. I really don't know what it is. It's very open at the moment.
Well, it sounds exciting, and I can guarantee you that our listeners are going to really like this interview. I'm going to, of course, edit a bit, but they're going to really enjoy it because you've told us some amazing stories, some amazing experiences. And
that's a pleasure. That's all right. That's fine.
Thank you so much for this.
Enjoy it, and I look forward to hearing from people via the site. And if anybody wants anything, great. And anybody wants to drop me a line, ask me questions, or send stuff, then the doors are there.
And when you get on Clone Wars, we'll do a follow-up.
Sorry?
And when you get on Clone Wars, we'll try to set up a follow-up, and hopefully the next time the internet will be nicer to us.
Yeah, or better still, if I get the chance to come over and do something over in, like, America, we could probably do, like, a live chat to meet, greet, whatever.
Celebration 7, be there.
Yeah, when is Celebration 7? I've heard people talking. Is that next year or the year after?
Well, they haven't announced Celebration 7 yet. They've announced Celebration Europe 2, and that's next year in Germany. But Celebration 7 they haven't announced yet.
Yeah, Celebration Europe 2, I think there's talk about that already going on. That's about April, May time, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's June in Germany.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be in Bayern Park, which is where I did the... Bayern Park has been like the main venue for the German sort of fan base the last few years.
Awesome.
Over the last 10 years, they tend to like all converge in there in like August.
Well, let's hope we see you there, or if you can come to Celebration 7, we'll pay you a visit because this has been fantastic, and we hope to do a follow-up in the future.
That's down in Orlando, isn't it?
So,
I think the way that one would work is that if I am going to end up doing anything on the Clone Wars, then by the time that one comes around, that will have all happened.
Yep.
Guessing.
Okay.
But we'll
so,
see. But yeah, Celebration will be good.
So just before we're done, do you have any questions for us, or any requests you want to make of the fans, or anything you want to tell to the fans and the listeners?
What could I tell them? I hope that they enjoy the new 3D versions of the film. I hear that they're a lot better than the originals. I'm hoping at some point there will be versions released of all the newer films that will include more of the stuff that was shot. There's a lot of stuff that particularly in Phantom Menace, that was shot that hasn't really seen the light of day. And that, yeah, if they want to sort of like get in touch and us to come along and do things or set stuff up so that come and pay people a visit and maybe do like a talk on the fights and the fight school similarly to this, then yeah, just welcome to it. There's an open door there. Or ask about anything else that it's been connected with. Because in a very strange way, I find a lot of these things all link up with like other jobs that you do.
That's true.
Like the link with Robin Hood, for example. It's like, I firmly believe I would never have probably got the job on Star Wars had I not done Robin Hood. Simply because of what and who was around and who was working on it.
And who knows how many jobs you got because of Star Wars. Yeah.
It opens doors to other things. And I find even now that, the fact that you work on Star Wars, you automatically get seen for certain things because they know what you can do, especially when they know that you've done any of the fight stuff.
Yeah.
I've just done an upgraded intensive horse riding and fight class because there's a lot of period things that are now being shot over here and in Europe that will sort of, again, marry the two skills together. So, constantly upgrading and keeping on top of them. So,
okay.
We'll see. It'll be great. Depends what everybody wants to drop a line and get in touch about. And like I say, if they want stuff that you need, you can find it on that website. Because I know there's a big collective thing, isn't there? Or as I keep discovering, there are things that people like and seek after, and I get all kinds of weird and wonderful requests for things. Can you send this? Can you sign this? Or people send me stuff to sign, and.
Well, we'll send them your way, and well, this has been excellent. Again, thank you very much for this, and we hope you have a very pleasant evening, and thank you for being so patient with us.
That's okay. You too. Force me with all the